Let's talk about the concept of an organizational structure. There's lots of different ways you can actually set up a company, and it could be anywhere from a startup with one person to a large corporation with several thousand people. It just depends what the focus is, but really at the end of the day, you're still fulfilling all four of the major functions of management: planning, organizing, leading, and holding the whole system accountable in the process under control. So then structures, we'll look at four proposed structures as well as three more different aspects to consider, and then actually an organization chart. Most places, if you have a larger corporation, organizational charts are now maintained by actually electronic systems as the reporting structure, but we'll talk about it. On the features, you want to always have a common purpose in the aspect of unifying the members so everybody is actually moving towards the same goals and objectives. Remember those strategic planning moments that you had before? Well, the goal is to reach those goals. And whenever you hear the word strategic in the world of business, you're talking 3 years plus. So you have these lofty goals and you will never achieve them 100%, but you can achieve them 80% or even maybe 90%. It depends exactly what you're doing because you don't know what the world's like 3 years plus out. With that being said, you have a common purpose. You're working together to sit down there and reach those goals. And occasionally something else comes along you didn't expect, and maybe you can grasp that as well. The division of labor. You want to make certain that each person knows what they're supposed to be doing. We call those things job descriptions, and a lot of times people forget they have one and they exceed it or they don't do most of it. It just depends as to who the people that you're dealing with. And then you have a hierarchy of authority. Yes, somebody at the top ruling the place. Well, it depends how they operate. Ruling probably isn't the best way of doing it. Probably working it today with the team approach is a lot easier and better for everybody involved, and you tend to get more things done. So a couple tools that we have is span of control. Now, I want to go back historically to 1990 and before. We used to have a span of control of 4 to 6 people, and that was primarily because the supervisor was the main holder of a thing called knowledge. You know, the world has shifted quite a bit. Probably one of the biggest ways it's shifted is that we have information instantly available for any employees with just a couple clicks of their computer or now even their phone on top of that. So does the supervisor have to own the information and then share the information as it's needed, or can they just give direction to employees? Here, over here, click this over here, and you'll see today's goals and objectives. Over here, we have our monthly plan, and here are the strategic plans. You can have an employee that can sit down there and in 5 minutes be able to see what the operational plan is, the tactical plans, the strategic plans. They can have an idea of exactly what the organization's long-term picture is and what their role in it is today. They can even see the potential for promotion all on their cell phone. It's incredible, the span of control. Do you need to have this narrow span of control of 4 to 6 people, or can it be much wider? The problem is, too often, by having a wider span of control with a supervisor supervising 18 to 20 people that have different kinds of jobs, it's one thing to have them all with a homogeneous job or all the same job, but when you start having the aspect of having multiple different jobs, you better be a good supervisor, and you also better be a good trainer. One of the errors that we have in many organizations today is you sit there and you talk to somebody and they have a look in their face and, I don't know what you're talking about, because you haven't been trained. You need to understand what your role is and what your company is doing. We forget training, and that is probably the biggest problem of having what we call a flat organization. By a flat organization, that means you have one supervisor with many people working with them as a team, except nobody talks to each other, nobody trains, nobody knows what they're supposed to do. If that's the case, you have made a major blunder in your organization. Span of control, yes, you can have a wider span of control or a flat organization, but you better make certain that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and make certain you hold people accountable, responsible, and when you delegate it, you follow up to make certain they do what they're supposed to be doing. Another part is centralization versus decentralization. It's interesting. Organizations, I believe there's an organizational wave that happens in almost every large organization. For a while, you sit there and says, we need to restrict everything so we have full control. We can have cost savings and have everything uniformly the way it's supposed to be done. The other school is we need to sit down and have a good decentralization. Let's push the power down to the people that are closest to the customer. We'll be more innovative and responsive to their needs. And it's almost like power, 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 central, 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 and then peace, peace, peace. Let's decentralize, decentralize. And it's almost a wave that occurs every 5 to 7 years. Usually what happens is you hire a CEO, and the CEO is a change agent. They come in, they're going to rattle the whole organization. You get sick of that after about 4 years. It takes 2 years to get rid of him. You fire him after 6 years. Then you bring in, let's all peace. Let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. And that everybody loves it for the first 2 years, 3 years. Not much gets done, but then 4 years you get sick of that one. Get rid of him 2 years later, and then boom, you get somebody else in. We need to take control. You'll have this wave. I've seen it time and time again. Trying to quantify it is really hard because of the fact people make up reasons why they get rid of them. But the role of centralization versus decentralization, both arguments are good. Both the types of thought really have flaws in them and strengths in them. It just depends where the organization is, and you can talk about it all you want. It's going to do what it's going to do. A vertical hierarchy of authority that's in your org chart, and then also the horizontal. Usually you'll see the aspect of who's in the org chart. Here's an example of it. Almost all your organizational charts that you have now are generated by some type of electronic software. They're relatively inexpensive, so even the smallest organizations can do this. But you can kind of see here, you got the executive administrative director, and you can see they have the director of human resources, director of admissions, director of nutrition and food services. You can see all that in the process. That really helps you understand something, and making this available to employees, it makes them able to understand what their role is and why their boss might be underneath pressure to get them to do something specific. It's good communication. It's a good tool. Sometimes it's used badly because of the fact that you may have an employee at the very bottom leap over 3 or 4 roles and say, well, I'm going to go talk to the president of the company. And you have that. So you have that aspect to deal with as well. Maybe too much communication sometimes. There's actually too much to begin with because of the fact it can provide false and actually access that you don't want to have happening. So traditional designs, you'll have the simple functional divisional matrix structures, and then the horizontal line, you want to eliminate functional barriers to solve. We'll talk about that especially with matrix structures as well. So we look at that, and sometimes here is the simplest design. Owner, administrative assistant, that works. The administrative assistant can even be located in a foreign country far off and actually be available at a relatively inexpensive cost when you're a startup. So it just depends where you're at. Here you're going to see a couple of structures. This is a matter, these are called functional, one's for business and one's for a hospital, although a hospital really is a business too. It just depends upon the titles and who's where. The president, you'll typically have a president and you'll have really the vice presidents. We call those the C-suite. In other words, the chief. You got the chief of marketing, chief of finance, chief of production, chief of human resources, and then the chief executive officer. So we call those on a general basis the C-suite, and you'll hear that in slang a lot in the world of business. Here you have a hospital with a chief administrator, chief of medical services, a director of administrative service, chief of administrative services. Those are all chiefs too. So you have pretty much the C-suite is the genre when we talk about the aspect of who's in charge. Divisional structures, you'll have a different structure here. Really, the very top one you'll see, you have the different ways to serve people by product. And then the second one you'll see serving people by the customers that you have, the different types of customers. And the third one, it's a divisional structure based upon geography. All three of them can make sense. So you have those things. So don't lock yourself into, we've always done it this way. Sometimes doing it that way is a good thing. But once again, as soon as you try to break them up, you have a thing called culture, culture, culture. Watch out for culture shock, because it can sit down there and snap back and everything can go back, except now you're on the outside looking in. So be careful about change, but look at them and see what is the most effective methodology as you rise in the ranks. Be careful about rocking the boat at a low level. You rock the boat at a mid-level and you might get promoted or you might get fired. Just depends where you're at. A matrix structure, in some ways, it works really, really well. It's a bit confusing. I want you to look for a second over here. And the functional structure, the vice president of marketing, that's my boss. I report to the vice president of marketing, and that's it. Well, wait a minute. You want me in this project? You want me to report to the project manager over here and his? What am I supposed to do? That actually is a problem, because the vice president of marketing, that is your boss on paper, and then you might be assigned to a project, and then you have the specific project so you can be a representative. If you look across the whole aspect of it, the project for the manager of the Mustang, you have a vice president of engineering, you have a vice president of finance, you have this, but you're having a cross structure where you'll have employees working in the project, and even though they're in marketing, production, finance, or engineering, they're in that, and you have a team working together on a project. This is a common structure. A lot of times, whenever you have a project, the project is going along. Once they launch the Mustang, boom, these people go back to their regular jobs, and you have a different crew take over to manage all the features once the Mustang is launched. You'll see this continually in the organization. It's relatively effective, but you do have a positive thing in that sometimes you'll have the silo of engineering that talking to finance. Well, all of a sudden now they're all on the same team and they're talking to each other. That's the positive. But you will have some confusion with the matrix. Here's a horizontal design. It's got a mixture of the vertical and the horizontal arrangements. It looks really confusing. And sometimes it is. You have to have a lot of clear communication to make this design successful. Here's what we call a hollow corporation. Different aspects over here. For the most part, you're outsourcing everything. This really is a matter of they're focusing in on this is what we're really good at, and this is what we're doing over here. We call that a hollow organization, and you'll see this could be a matter of Nike. Nike does not make shoes. They don't make clothing. They are a marketing company and a design company, and they farm everything out. So with that, all of a sudden, Nike, they can sit down and focus on the thing that they're good at. They're really good at design. They're really good at marketing, and they don't have to worry about the soles and the uppers and the manufacturing process. They have good, solid contractors they've had for a long time that take the design and implement it the way they want. So with that, you have them focusing on their core, so we call that a hollow structure. A couple things I want to reiterate as we depart from the structure here. Span of control, decentralization, and the authority is a big thing. Pay attention to the structure. There's lots of different kinds of structures, but they all have different versions of simplicity, the functionality. Look on the tradition, the divisional. We'll talk more about the matrix structure later on, as well as a flat organization. They all work depending upon how you're set up. And be careful if you want to change it, especially if you're low and mid-level manager, just depending upon the timing is what's involved. But always keep your eyes open for new opportunities for business expansion, and especially trying to promote the business and maybe your own career in the process. Take care.